Hello, clever people, and welcome to my review for Star Wars The Last Jedi. So Star Wars The Last Jedi continues the story from The Force Awakens about Rey and Finn and Poe and Luke and all the characters, and I can't really say what happens in it because it's kind of a secret, because the trailers really did not show what this movie was about, and a lot of people out there will not even watch this review if I say any sort of minor detail about the plot or what happens. But basically all I'll say is that the movie follows the fight between the Resistance and the First Order, and the conflict and training of Rey to become a Jedi by Luke Skywalker, and that is all I will say. So even though I'm just clearly stating the obvious here, I was stoked for Star Wars, just absolutely out of my mind excited for this movie. The trailers were great, but that really doesn't matter. The marketing can be as great or as awful as it can possibly be, but what I'm most excited for is the fact that a Star Wars movie is coming out in theaters. And it's happening every year now. In fact, it's going to happen in another 6 months with the new Han Solo movie. So it's happening very frequently now, and I really hope that my excitement doesn't go down for them. But as of right now, even if the movie could come out and just, they say that it's simply just a story of people completely unrelated to the Star Wars universe, like living their daily life, if it still has the word Star Wars in the title, I'm going to be excited for it. And because of that, sometimes my expectations can become a little much, and sometimes I can deny the fact that a movie is as good or as bad as I think it is. Because when, The Force Awakens came out, I was out of my mind about it. I was telling everybody to go see it. I was calling it one of the best movies ever made. Looking back on it, I find a lot of personal love in it, and I would still give it like a 9.25. But I understand the fact that it's not really the best movie. It has a lot of flaws. And even Rogue One, when it first came out, I was super big on it. I said it was really good. I didn't change so much about that one. I still think Rogue One is a very good movie. Honestly, though, I do believe that it does have a lot of lazy aspects, and I believe that overall it was a very muddled movie. So what I can easily say about this one is my reaction to it, I don't think is a freak out. And it easily could be, and I could rewatch it a few times and like it less, but as of right now, The Last Jedi is the best movie this year. It's not even a question. The Last Jedi exceeds Blade Runner 2049, exceeds The Lady Bird, exceeds Get Out, exceeds every great movie that came out this year. I was absolutely stunned by what they were able to accomplish. Honestly, I really can't talk fully about this movie in the way that I want to without getting into some major spoilers. So basically, I'm just going to be regurgitating a lot of what a lot of people have said. What can easily be said about this movie is that it is very fresh and very new. Rian Johnson was given, I believe he was given complete creative freedom over this movie. I heard that from a few places. I'm not sure how reliable that is, but that's what I heard, and if so, it paid off to just absolutely, because the movie completely undoes every expectation you can have. You can have spent months and months analyzing the trailers and reading every single book leading up to it, playing every single game related to it, reading all the comics, and you will still not be able to predict what happens in this movie. Characters that you believe will have huge significance don't. And subplots and things that you think are good can end up being bad. And the way that he defies the tropes of Star Wars, but even defies the tropes of cinema, is just so amazing to see. And it's so creative, and I absolutely love it, because it's adding some style into the blockbuster genre that has been missing. A lot of reason that a lot of people say that modern Hollywood is dead is because it's only really the blockbusters that get the big major acclaim and are called the best. And honestly, that's kind of annoying to me, because there are a lot of smaller movies out there that need to be taken into consideration. And if you ask the people who say that cinema is dead, if you ask them if they've seen films like Werckmeister Harmonies or, other movies like that, they will say no, and they will not have actually tried to go as deep into modern day cinema as they could. And what this year has been great for is taking big blockbusters and doing new things with them. You got it earlier in the year with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which had about an hour and a half of dull time. I would say that hour and a half was basically the second act low point, but it happened for an entire hour, and it completely changed the basic structure of Marvel movies. Then you had Blade Runner 2049, which was handed off to a very questionable director in terms of, approaching the audience, and you got something so beautiful and stunning. And now The Last Jedi has brought something so new, not just to Star Wars, but to the blockbuster genre in general. And of course the acting in here is just fantastic. I mean, one of the best parts about Star Wars is that you can have actors that aren't really amazing actors. They're good, but they're not amazing, and they can be amazing in Star Wars movies. You see that with Rey. She was okay in Murder on the Orient Express, but she shines as Rey. You can see that in even General Hux. I'm forgetting his name. Domhnall Gleeson is his name. He's fine in Goodbye Christopher Robin, and he's been fine in other movies, but here he really does shine, especially in this one. I was concerned because in the last one he was just fine, but in this one he's especially good. But the biggest standout here is Luke. Mark Hamill, he just does such an incredible job at showing the same Luke character that we know, but a character that's completely different because he's older and he's grizzled and he's had more experience with things. And Leia as well. Her performance was not big and overstated. She did not overreact to too many things. Rather, she just was sort of laid back, yet at the same time she was still putting her all into it. And that could be said basically about every single actor. And what was great is that basically every single character got development in this movie. One of the biggest standouts being Poe, who is a resistance fighter, and some of the stuff that they go into with his character and his ambitions and the way that they sort of turn it on its head is really excellent, and I loved how they approach that. And I love how they approach every single subplot in this movie. And it's all just so refreshing to see how well paced it is, and just to see each character having development that is worthwhile and isn't just cinematic noise. And I absolutely love it. A big problem a lot of people have brought up with the movie was the casino scene, or the entire subplot with Finn and Rose. And honestly, I didn't mind it. I actually kind of liked that subplot because it happened in the first hour of the movie. And probably my biggest issue with The Last Jedi is that the first act, or really the first hour of this movie, is just a pretty good movie. It's like a 7 out of 10. I like it, I don't love it, because it has some weird pacing issues, where because it's hopping around so many different subplots, I never got to fully invest in one of them, or really I wasn't fully invested in the entire story. That's something that can easily change on a rewatch, but after a certain thing happens in the second act, and even a little bit before then, I got really into this movie. And I'm just going to say that there are some visual things that happen in this movie that I've always wanted to see in the Star Wars universe that I got to see, and those were very exciting. And one more thing I'm going to say about The Last Jedi is that its themes are very relevant, and I really like the way that they were incorporated into here. Because by giving a director like Rian Johnson complete creative control, or at least 80% creative control, you got to see how the themes of Star Wars were really tested. And I'm not going to say how, but the idea of light side and dark side and other ideas like that that have been shown throughout every single Star Wars movie are tested in this movie. And I loved the way that they did that. The Last Jedi is a movie that does have some flaws in its first act, because it's all in all not that investing, and that's probably why I didn't really mind the whole casino scene, was because I already wasn't invested in that part of the movie. But at a certain point, the movie becomes extremely unpredictable. It goes on a lot longer than you think. This feels like a 3 or a 3.5 hour movie, but I could have taken another half hour of this movie. It's so terrifically paced, it's just so tonally strong, and it's both entertaining and just jaw-dropping. So many scenes in this movie, I was just taken back by every component of it, whether it be the visuals or the story. And I will say, this is the first movie ever to literally make me stop breathing at one point. A lot of people will use the term, "this movie knocked the wind out of me," multiple times and over again. And at a certain point, the term doesn't really mean anymore. You can say it for just something that you thought was really cool. And because of that, I've never really used the term, but this is the first movie I will use it for, because at one point, I literally had the wind knocked out of me. I literally didn't breathe for a second. And let me just say, I'm not going to say what that moment is. I might do a spoiler review, so I might get into it there. But that moment was just amazing. And that moment that I'm talking about could be different for everybody. Different people could have different reactions to the scene that I saw, and they could actually have, stop breathing at certain other scenes. It really just depends on what kind of Star Wars fan you are. And I have to say, this is probably the most well-rounded Star Wars movie, and I will say that it is my second favorite Star Wars movie, only behind The Empire Strikes Back. If you are a Star Wars fan, go and see this movie. If you're not, I would recommend seeing some of the Star Wars movies beforehand, especially The Force Awakens, and then going to see this one. But this will bring in new Star Wars fans. This movie was revolutionary. I loved it, and it was honestly just the best movie this year. There's no other way of saying it. This is so amazing, and it's so refreshing and so great to see. I will give Star Wars The Last Jedi a 9.5 out of 10. Alright, that concludes my review for The Last Jedi. What do you think of this film, or what do you think of the Star Wars films in general? Comment in the comment section below and let me know. I'm Robert Burke, and this has been The Clever Critics. Goodbye.